Hello and welcome back to the Fullerton College Pre-Press class. This is Professor Ben Hewitt. Today we're going to take a look at the second part of the folding and binding chapter of the PIA trainee manual, which is section 5.4. I'm sorry I give you the mouthful at the beginning of every video, but this way you always know where you are if you're picking up in the middle. So here we are. We're looking at the idea of folding paper to create pages. The more folds you have, the more pages you get. In fact, it's squared. Every time you fold, you double the pages. You fold once, you have two pages. Sorry, you don't fold at all, you have two pages from the front and the back. You fold once, you have 4. You fold another time, you have 8. Fold another time, you have 16. Another fold makes 32. Every time you fold, the page count doubles. So just a second, let me be right with you here. Hello there, it's me. Welcome to my room. Anyways, I wanted to show you because just talking about it by words doesn't quite work. So here's a quick little demo of this one, folding the sheet. You see, when you have a sheet of paper, it has two sides, a front and a back. If you fold this in half once, it's gonna be a bad fold because I'm doing it up in the air, not on a flat surface. We now have 4 pages. 1, 2, 3, 4. I just doubled it by folding once. Give it a second fold, we'll go perpendicular to that fold. And now we have 8 pages. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You kind of have to cut off the top to really make it work. And if you fold it again, you always have to go perpendicular after each fold for this to work. To make a signature, you have yourself 16 pages. Now you also have to cut off the face because some of the pages are enclosed on the thumb edge there as well. So hopefully that was a helpful visual. Pardon you having to look at my face there, but I wanted to show that paper. I will be making other videos that demonstrate how to make a proper signature dummy a little bit later. So the 16-page signature is kind of an industry standard, and that 16-page signature is how magazines, catalogs, books, newsletter, and a lot of things that have multiple pages that are bound into books are printed. You can do one more. If you fold one more time, that fourth fold gives you 32 pages, which is a lot of sheets. But that's not done very often in commercial printing. It makes the paper very thick. It makes lining things up a lot harder. It makes trimming and stitching a bit more challenging. But it is done for some things like mass market paperbacks because you can fit a lot of things on one sheet and spend less press time to print the New York Times bestseller aisle at the grocery store's books, because those are just black ink on not even really white paper, on kind of newsprint practically. So quick and dirty jobs will do that. But for a lot of things, it just doesn't hold up. Like I said, you're not able to really do your crossovers. Things don't line up quite as well. The more times you fold, the more physical actions you take on a paper, the more likely something is going to go wrong. Every process you do to a print job is kind of like rolling the dice one more time. Sorry to be there with my nerdness on this, but I play enough games where you roll dice, and typically speaking, you're trying not to roll a 1 in a lot of them. And you know, the more times you roll, the more likely you are to get any given result. The more times you do something, the more times you're going to fail at it as well. But you'll get better as you go, except when it's random. Anyways, I'm just saying more processes equals more chance for things to go wrong. In processes, in bureaucracies, and in machinery, you really want to have the fewest moving parts possible for a more reliable result. So more likely or not, 32-page signature is 2 16 pages done together, and then they're cut in half rather than actually folding it 4 times. It's hard to fold a paper. The more times you fold, the less likely you are to get it accurate. And like I said previously, paperback books do often have that 4th fold because again, their goal is to print quickly and efficiently and not necessarily to have nice pictures or nice graphics that extend across pages and nothing really needs to line up. Although I did get one once when I was when I was in high school, and the book had some pages that were folded incorrectly in the book. It was a Tom Clancy novel. And it was really tricky. It took me a while to figure out what was going on because in the middle of a sentence on one page, it suddenly jumped to the middle of a sentence on another page that was out of order. And the sentence made sense. But suddenly the scenery changed and we were no longer on a helicopter approaching the jungles of Colombia for some sort of black ops raid against drug operations. I'm like, instead, suddenly we were in a prison in the Midwest. And it didn't quite make sense. The characters changed, what they were talking about changed. It took me a while to realize, thank goodness for page numbers, that in fact an entire signature had been put in out of order and folded incorrectly. And once I figured that out and I read it like a choose your own adventure where you flip from section to section, the book made more sense. Ups and downs. Every time when you saw, actually, if you look at the video from Heidelberg that I showed, every time you see the sheet going into that cage towards the stopper, it goes up. When it goes down, it's a down. So up folds and down folds are different. That is, which direction is the page being folded? Is it folding up or is it folding down? So it's possible to do it all ups, call it up and up. You can fold up, up, and up, or you can fold up, up, and down. It takes longer to do the down, but sometimes the extra down is necessary for specific arrangements and specific paper types. It can fold more easily, though with some more effort to get the system to do it. Page numbering. There will be a separate video that I will make you guys for this one. So don't look for it in this lecture, but look for it in our shell for this page. Or if you're not actually in my class and somehow just watching this on YouTube, then check out my channel. You'll find that video for the folding dummy. That'll be the title of the video. So the folding dummy is going to show how to lay this stuff out. Some people, like my dad, have done this enough that they're capable of, in their head, imagining a folded signature and knowing which page goes where on 16 or 32 page signatures and which orientation they are on the press sheet. I am not one of those. Very few people can do that. And even if you can, it's better not to spend your memory doing it if you can help it. Fold a dummy. A folding dummy is just a blank sheet of paper folded the same way a signature would be folded, and you number the pages by hand with a pen. And then when you open it up, you'll know which page goes where on which side of the sheet and which way do they face. This same dummy can be passed along with your job to all the people in the process, the pressmen, the stackers, the finishers, everyone who does everything all the way until this is delivered to the customer should have a copy of that dummy so they too can understand how it folds. This is especially important if you're doing anything clever or different. If you have a page that folds out extra times, you make a center spread that folds out to have a whole battleship shown on like 6 pages that just keeps folding and folding and folding. That needs to be seen by everyone from press to bindery so they all understand what's going to happen. This is a useful piece of communication, not just for you doing the imposition, but for everyone down the line to know what the job is. So I'm sorry for the dad joke here. We're all on the same page. I'm winking. Really, really significantly winking, but you can't see it. So we're going to skip this because you'll see my separate video will have the folding dummy in it. And you do also want to mark where the gripper and the guide are going to go. And you fold it the way it's going to be folded. And then, hey, you did it. But remember, we did this in a separate video where you could actually see me doing it. I need to use a separate camera for this and not my computer's built-in camera because I need to set it up on a tripod so you can really see what's happening. But anyways, once you folded it, then you need to number it. Again, this thing will help a lot of people get it right. And in pre-press, it's your job to make sure everyone gets it right. You're not just doing design. You're not just doing layout. In a way, you're playing a team leader role where you're going to make sure that everyone is not capable. Everyone's in the know. Make sure everyone who needs to know what's happening knows what's happening. Your job is to communicate. So numbering the pages happens. Sometimes you won't just do a signature by itself and that's a whole book. Sometimes you nest them. You put a signature inside another signature. This one I can show here real quick. Hello again. This one I can show here without a problem. So here's the signature we folded earlier just to show you how pages happen. Here's an extra scrap sheet of paper I have that has some charts and stuff on it, but folded to the same size. Sometimes signatures, whoops, I meant to do that. Sometimes signatures are complete on their own and you stack them one on top of another and that gets bound into the book of the spine of the book. Sometimes, however, the signatures are more than one sheet of paper and you can nest them inside each other so that now the signature itself has more pages. This can be helpful if you're only doing a single signature. If you're doing a book that has more paper than one page can give you, that's going to be saddle stitched along the edge. Also, sometimes just for even case-bound books, you need more sheets inside it to make that happen. And we're back. So that's combining. So then these things work for a lot of different types of actual binding that end up happening. Sometimes you may do them slightly different for some versions of mechanical binding. Some of those prefer loose leaf pages, but that's a separate topic. So let's look at some different binding methods. Saddle stitch. The derogatory term for this is stapling. If you go around talking about stapling, you can do that to clients who are not in the know and not in the industry, and you can help them understand by communicating in language they understand. But don't go around a print shop talking like this. They'll think you don't know what you're doing. Use the correct term, saddle stitching. One of the big things about this that is different is, unlike a stapler, which uses cut metal staples, a saddle stitcher, you put the paper on top of a metal saddle, which looks like a saddle you'd ride a horse on, kind of. And then it actually has it's basically a giant sewing machine for wire that will sew the wire through the middle, bend it off and cut it off and crimp it into the shape of a staple. Again, I'll put a separate video up showing you one of these so you can see one in operation. They're a lot of fun. They're a little scary. I mean, it's a powerful machine that forces metal through something. And if you think you can staple your hand in kindergarten, because there's always somebody coming to the nurse with a staple through their finger in kindergarten, imagine how much worse it is with a pneumatically powered machine or an electrically powered industrial stapling saddle stitcher. Woof. So when you start from a spool of wire, like a spool of thread, because it's like a giant sewing machine, it's a stitcher. If you start with pre-cut staples in a row and you go clip, 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 if the spring, then it's a stapling instead of stitching. If you are using pre-made staples, it's a stapler. And if the word swing line is involved anywhere, it's a stapler. Okay, station to station. So you can have multiple stations on a saddle stitcher. So people can put multiple things through and lay the paper on, dropping the signatures on top of the saddles. You can have multiple people putting them all together before one person actually does the stitching at the end. There's also more and more automated ones. Some are inline, some actually happen as a part of the printing process. They'll just come off the press and automatically get stitched. Whoops, let me go back real quick. You do need to make sure you're allowing enough space for something called the lip. If you're folding paper and it's more or less a bust cut and you've left no room for bleed, there's no color bars, there's no trim off sections of, what do you call them? Trim marks. Then it doesn't matter so much if it's going to fold straight to the edges. Those dummies I showed you folding, both in this video and in a separate video, were folded all the way to the edge, and that's more to show you what the signatures are going to be. But when you actually fold a printed press sheet, you have to allow the lip, which is going to have space for the gripper, space for those extra marks, the bleed area, the slug area, all the other printer's marks, the color bars that need to be there. They're not supposed to be in the final book. So those have to go outside where the pages line up. So instead you want to line up crop mark to make sure those are aligned when it's being folded. That way, when you trim it off, the book looks like a proper book and not a printing mistake when it's all done. 3 knife trimmers. I suppose I should make a one-piece joke in here somewhere about the 3-sword technique. But anyways, the 3-knife trimmer is an inline system and sometimes an offline system that can trim 3 edges off the booklets. Remember how I showed you in that little video, even in this video, that sometimes the face edge, the top edge, and the bottom edge, depending on how many folds you've given it, need to be cut off before the book can even be opened. So a 3-knife trimmer cuts off the top, the bottom, and the side, leaving only the spine edge where it's going to be stitched, whether it's a saddle stitch or an actual thread stitch or whatever else you're doing to it. It leaves only the spine and the gutter edge, but the other 3, the top, the bottom, and the face, all get trimmed off. This way people don't have to sit there and turning it manually in a guillotine, chopping off bit by bit by bit. It can also be done manually. You have large piles of untrimmed booklets, and you go through and you cut those off bit by bit by bit. You cut one, and then you cut the next edge, and you cut the next edge, and you make sure that you leave the binding edges against the sidewall of the cutter, and the binding edge is never actually cut off, because you do that, you ruin the whole thing. Anyways, that's about it for this video. I'm out of time. We'll do one more in just a minute. Thank you for listening, and it's been nice having you.